You know that feeling when your entire life suddenly feels like it was built on quicksand? That moment when everything you believed to be solid and true just collapses? Yeah, that was me about 8 months ago. One minute I was Riley Bennett, happily planning a future with my boyfriend of 4 years. And the next I was, what? The fool? The side piece? The placeholder? I'm still not entirely sure what role I was supposed to be playing in Marcus Sullivan's life. I met Marcus at a charity fundraiser my company had organized for the local children's hospital. I was running around making sure everything was perfect, clipboard in hand, sensible heels already killing my feet, when he approached me with a glass of champagne and that smile. God, that smile. It's strange how something I once found so charming now makes my stomach turn. "You look like you could use this more than I could," he said, offering me the champagne. I remember thinking he was too handsome to be talking to me, tall with dark hair that always looked perfectly tousled, warm brown eyes, and a jawline that belonged on a movie poster. But he was, and soon we were laughing in a corner while the event carried on around us. By the end of the night, he had my number and I had butterflies. Our relationship progressed in that wonderfully ordinary way that still feels magical when you're in it. Coffee dates became dinner dates. Dinner dates became weekends together. Then came the drawer at each other's place, the toothbrush, the keys. At the 1-year mark, I met his family, the prestigious Sullivans, old money, and older connections. His father, James, ran a successful real estate development company. His mother, Catherine, was involved in various charitable boards. His younger brother, Ethan, was in law school. They welcomed me with what I thought was genuine warmth. Sunday dinners at their sprawling colonial-style home became a regular thing. Catherine taught me her secret recipe for peach cobbler. James would pour me a glass of his expensive bourbon and ask my opinion on his latest projects. I actually thought they liked me, the middle-class graphic designer from the wrong side of town. They made me feel like I belonged. "You're practically family," Catherine would say, squeezing my hand across the dinner table. "Riley fits right in, doesn't she, James?" And James would nod approvingly, raising his glass. To Riley, the daughter we never had. 4 years went by like that. 4 years of building what I thought was a foundation for our future. Marcus and I had talked about marriage, not in definite terms, but in those comfortable hypotheticals that couples share. When we have a house, or our kids would have your eyes. I was patient. I knew Marcus was focused on proving himself at his father's company, taking on bigger projects, establishing his own reputation apart from the Sullivan name. What I didn't know, what I never suspected, was that while I was imagining our future together, Marcus was actively planning a future with someone else. I found out on a Tuesday. It's strange the details you remember about the worst day of your life. It was raining, one of those heavy spring downpours that seems to wash the world clean. Ironic, really, considering what the day revealed. I had stopped by the Sullivan house to drop off some papers Marcus had left at my apartment. He was supposed to be at a construction site overseeing a new development, but his car wasn't the only one missing from the driveway. The whole family seemed to be out. I still had a key. Catherine had insisted I take one almost 2 years ago. "For emergencies," she'd said with a wink, "or whenever you want to surprise us." I let myself in, planning to leave the papers on Marcus's desk in his old bedroom, which he still used sometimes when working late with his father. The house was quiet, except for the sound of the housekeeper vacuuming upstairs. I headed to Marcus's room, but as I passed James's office, I noticed the door was slightly ajar. Inside, spread across his massive mahogany desk, were what looked like event planning materials. Curiosity got the better of me. The Sullivans were always hosting charity events, and I often helped with the graphic design elements. I pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. It took me a moment to process what I was seeing. Seating charts, floral arrangements, menu selections, and at the center of it all, an ornate invitation in elegant script. "Senator and Mrs. Harold Montgomery request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their daughter, Rebecca Ann, to Marcus James Sullivan. Saturday, the 15th of June, 2025. I remember picking up the invitation with trembling hands, convinced there was some mistake. Maybe it was an old invitation from before we met, but the date was just 6 weeks away. Maybe it was for a different Marcus Sullivan. But there was a photo. Marcus, my Marcus, with his arms around a stunning blonde woman, both of them beaming at the camera. The photo was recent. He was wearing the watch I had given him for his birthday 3 months ago. I must have made a sound, because suddenly Catherine Sullivan was standing in the doorway, her face transitioning from surprise to something harder to read. Not guilt, not exactly. More like resignation mixed with annoyance. "Riley," she said, her voice lacking its usual warmth, "you shouldn't be in here." I turned to face her, the invitation still in my hand. "What is this? Who is Rebecca Montgomery?" Catherine sighed, as if I was a child asking a tiresome question. "This is exactly why we didn't want to tell you yet. We knew you'd overreact." Overreact? My voice sounded strange to my own ears, high and thin. "Marcus is getting married to someone else in 6 weeks, and I'm overreacting?" She crossed the room and firmly took the invitation from my hands. "Marcus was going to tell you this weekend. We've all agreed it would be best to make a clean break now. You're a lovely girl, Riley, but surely you understood this was never going to be permanent." I stared at her, trying to process her words. "What are you talking about? We've been together for 4 years. We've talked about marriage, about children." "Oh, honey." Catherine's smile was pitying now. "Marcus needs to marry someone suitable. The Montgomerys are one of the oldest families in the state. Harold is likely our next governor. This union has been in discussion for over a year." "A year?" The room seemed to tilt around me. "He's been planning this for a year?" "These things take time to arrange properly," she said, as if explaining something obvious. "Marcus has always known his responsibilities to this family. Rebecca is his future, the appropriate future. You must have realized that?" But I hadn't realized, not even for a second, because for 4 years I had been living in a completely different reality, one where love mattered more than social standing, where the Sullivans had welcomed me despite my ordinary background, where Marcus and I were building toward a shared future. I left the house in a daze, barely registering Catherine calling after me, something about being reasonable and a generous arrangement. It was still raining, and I was soaked by the time I reached my car. I sat there in the Sullivan driveway, water dripping from my hair onto my phone as I scrolled through my photos of Marcus and me, looking for, what? Signs that it had all been a lie? Some indication that I should have known? But all I saw were the memories that had shaped the last 4 years of my life, all apparently built on a foundation of deception so complete that an entire family had participated in it. I finally drove home through the rain, my vision blurred as much by tears as by the water on the windshield. I needed to talk to someone who would understand, someone who would know exactly how I felt without my having to explain it. I needed my twin sister. Reagan answered on the first ring like she always does when I call. That's the thing about having a twin. Even when you're miles apart, there's this connection that never breaks. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. She didn't even say hello, just jumped straight to concern. I must have been projecting my distress through the phone somehow. "Everything," I managed to choke out before dissolving into tears again. "I'm coming over," she said. "Don't move. Don't do anything. Just wait for me." That's Reagan. Decisive, protective, always ready to go to battle for me. We might be identical twins physically, but our personalities split somewhere in the womb. While I got the caution and the benefit of the doubt optimism, Reagan got the fire and the take-no-prisoners approach to life. Where I see gray areas, she sees clear lines of right and wrong. And let me tell you, what Marcus and his family had done was firmly in her wrong column. She arrived 40 minutes later with a bottle of tequila and a determined expression. I'd managed to change out of my wet clothes and was sitting on my couch, staring blankly at the wall. The initial shock was wearing off, being replaced by a cold, hollow feeling in my chest. "Tell me everything," she said, pouring us each a shot. I hadn't had tequila since college, but this seemed like an appropriate time to revisit old coping mechanisms. So I told her about finding the invitation, about Catherine's cold dismissal of our 4-year relationship, about the fact that apparently everyone, The entire Sullivan family had known all along that Marcus was destined for Rebecca Montgomery, not me. Those manipulative, elitist assholes, Reagan seethed when I finished. And Marcus, that spineless, two-faced... She launched into a creative string of expletives that would have made a sailor blush. I just don't understand, I said, cutting off her impressive tirade. Why? Why date me for 4 years if he knew he was going to marry someone else? Why introduce me to his family? Why let me believe? I trailed off, fresh tears threatening. Reagan squeezed my hand. Because he wanted both, she said simply. He wanted the fun, no-pressure relationship with you, someone his parents would never approve for marriage, but were happy to let him date in the meantime. And he wanted the socially advantageous marriage to the politician's daughter. He thought he could have it all. But 4 years, Reagan, 4 years of my life. Which is exactly why he's not going to get away with this. There was something in her tone that made me look up. Reagan had that look. The one that had gotten us into trouble numerous times growing up. The one that said she wasn't just angry. She was plotting. What are you thinking? I asked warily. I'm thinking, she said, refilling our shot glasses, that Marcus Sullivan and his entire family need to learn that they picked the wrong twins to mess with. Over the next few days, the full extent of the betrayal became clearer. Marcus finally called me the day after my discovery. His voice carefully modulated into what I now recognized as his handling Riley tone. I was going to tell you this weekend, he said, as if that somehow made everything okay. I never meant for you to find out like this. How exactly did you mean for me to find out? I asked, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. With a wedding invitation? Or were you just going to ghost me after 4 years? Don't be dramatic, Riley, he sighed. I care about you, I always have. But this thing with Rebecca, it's been planned for a long time. Our families have known each other forever. It's complicated. Actually, it's very simple, I countered. You lied. For years. I didn't lie, he said, and I could practically hear him straightening his shoulders, preparing his defense. I just didn't tell you everything. There's a difference. And your parents? Were they in on this charade the whole time? All those Sunday dinners, all those "you're like family to us" moments. Was that all just to keep me happy while you prepared to marry someone else? There was a pause, just long enough to confirm what I already knew. My parents did what they thought was best for everyone. They genuinely like you, Riley. We all do. Just not enough to be honest with me. Not enough to respect me as a person who was making life decisions based on what I thought was real. Look, he said, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I now realized had always been there. I understand you're upset. Catherine mentioned we might be able to work something out, a sort of continuation after things settle down. Rebecca will be busy with her charity work and political obligations, and I'll need... Are you seriously suggesting I become your mistress? I interrupted, incredulous. I wouldn't put it like that, he said quickly. More like, we could maintain a connection. Discreetly. I hung up then. There was nothing left to say. Later that day, Reagan came back over with her laptop. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with, she said, pulling up social media accounts. Let's see this Rebecca person. Rebecca Montgomery was everything I wasn't. Blonde, polished, from an established family. Her Instagram was a carefully curated display of charity galas, political fundraisers, and tasteful vacation photos. And there, scattered throughout the last year of posts, was Marcus. Nothing obvious. A group photo here, him in the background there, but enough that anyone looking closely would see the pattern. While I had been planning weekend getaways with Marcus, posting coupled-up photos on my own social media, Rebecca had been subtly documenting their real relationship for her followers. More disturbing were the photos I found of the Sullivan family at Montgomery events. James and Catherine beaming beside Senator Montgomery. Marcus's brother Ethan chatting with Rebecca's sister at a fundraiser. These weren't recent developments. Some of these photos went back years. The Sullivan family Christmas card from last year suddenly made more sense. I had been invited to the photo shoot, the first time I'd been included, and had been so touched by the gesture. Now I realized it had been strategic. I was positioned on the far edge of the group photo, easily cropped out of the version I now discovered had been sent to their more important connections. They were planning this the whole time, I said, sitting back from the computer. All of them. Playing me for a fool while setting up the real relationship. Reagan nodded grimly. And look at this. The Montgomery Sullivan Development Project. She pointed to a news article announcing a major real estate development partnership between Sullivan Developments and Montgomery Investments. Announced just 3 months ago. A $50 million luxury residential complex. Guess who's the lead on the project? Marcus, I whispered. This isn't just about marriage, Riley. This is about business, politics, power. They used you as Marcus's placeholder girlfriend while they negotiated the real deals. The more we discovered, the more the anger grew inside me. This wasn't just a boyfriend cheating. This was a calculated, years-long deception involving multiple people, all of whom had smiled to my face while knowing I was being used. Later that night, after Reagan had gone home, Marcus texted me, "Can we talk? I think we can work through this like adults." Like adults, as if the adult thing to do was to quietly accept being deceived and discarded. I didn't reply. Instead, I scrolled through 4 years of photos and memories, letting the pain and humiliation fuel something new, a determination I hadn't known I possessed. The next morning, I called Reagan. "I want to fight back," I said the moment she answered. "I don't know how, but I can't let them get away with this." There was a smile in her voice when she replied, "I was hoping you'd say that. I've already made some calls. Come over for dinner tonight. There are some people I think you should meet." "Who?" I asked, confused. "Our team," she said simply. "Because if the Sullivans and Montgomerys want to play dirty, they're about to discover that they're not the only ones who know how to conspire." Reagan's apartment was already crowded when I arrived that evening. I recognized most of the faces. Our cousin Tyler, hunched over a laptop with his typical intense focus. My best friend Zoe, who had despised Marcus from day one. Too perfect, she'd always said. Nobody's that perfect without hiding something. Our older brother Liam and his wife Mia, and a couple of friends from college. "Welcome to Operation Wedding Crashers," Reagan announced as I walked in, gesturing dramatically to a whiteboard she'd set up in her living room. I couldn't help but laugh, my first genuine laugh since discovering Marcus's betrayal. "Are we really doing this?" I asked, looking around at the determined faces. "Damn right we are," said Zoe, pulling me into a fierce hug. "Nobody messes with my best friend and gets away with it." "Think of it as a family project," Tyler added, without looking up from his computer. "Exposing liars is practically a public service." Over pizza and beer, Reagan laid out what she'd learned so far. The Sullivan-Montgomery wedding was shaping up to be the social event of the season. 300 guests, including state politicians, business leaders, and local celebrities. It would be held at the Westbrook Country Club, the most exclusive venue in the state. Security would be tight, with a strict guest list and ID checks. "So how exactly are we supposed to crash it?" I asked, overwhelmed by the scale of what we were up against. "We don't just want to crash it," Reagan explained. "We want to expose Marcus and his family for who they really are, not just to you, but to Rebecca, her family, and all their high society friends. And to do that," Tyler continued, finally looking up from his screen, "we need to be strategic. Each of us has a role to play, and we need to coordinate perfectly." What followed was the most surreal planning session of my life. My family and friends, gathered around a whiteboard, plotting an elaborate scheme to expose a family that had deceived me for years. It was like something out of a movie, except it was my life, and the pain driving this mission was very real. Tyler, it turned out, had been secretly taking cybersecurity courses for the past year. "I can hack into their event management system," he explained. "Get access to their audio-visual setup, security protocols, everything." "Is that legal?" I asked hesitantly. He gave me a level look. "Is emotionally manipulating someone for 4 years legal?" I didn't have a good answer for that. Zoe, who worked as a professional makeup artist, had already reached out to contacts in the wedding industry. The original makeup artist for the bridal party just got a mysterious offer to work on a movie set that weekend, she said with a sly smile. I've already submitted my portfolio as a replacement. With my reputation, I'm practically a shoo-in. Liam and Mia, both lawyers, were focusing on the legal aspects. We need to be careful, Liam cautioned. Public embarrassment is one thing, but we don't want anyone filing harassment charges against us afterward. What we need, Mia added, is to stick to verifiable truths. No exaggerations, no accusations we can't prove. Reagan had already created a detailed timeline of Marcus's double life, complete with photos, text messages I'd saved, and social media posts that established the overlap between his relationship with me and his engagement to Rebecca. The key is coordination, Reagan emphasized. We need to be stationed at different points around the venue, and we need to act simultaneously. Maximum impact, minimum chance for security to shut us down before we're finished. Over the next month, we met regularly to refine the plan. Tyler worked his tech magic, gaining access to the venue's systems and the wedding planner's communications. Zoe secured the makeup artist position, giving her direct access to Rebecca and her bridesmaids on the morning of the wedding. Our college friends practiced their roles as guests. We'd created fake identities for them that Tyler had carefully inserted into the digital guest list. Reagan would handle the main distraction at the security entrance, creating a scene that would draw attention while others slipped into position. Liam and Mia would pose as distant relatives of the Montgomery family, their legal training making them particularly good at maintaining cover stories. And me? I would be at the center of it all, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. As the wedding date approached, we refined every detail. We had floor plans of the venue, the exact schedule of events, even the seating chart for the ceremony. We knew which entrance Marcus would use, where Rebecca would get ready, and when each member of both families would arrive. 2 weeks before the wedding, we conducted a full rehearsal in Reagan's apartment, each person practicing their lines and timing. Tyler tested his control over the venue's audio-visual system using a simulator he'd built. Zoe practiced applying makeup while subtly gathering information, using Reagan as her test subject. The night before our final planning session, I had a moment of doubt. Was this really the right thing to do? Was I becoming as manipulative as the people who had hurt me? I called Reagan and voiced my concerns. "Listen," she said after hearing me out. "There's a fundamental difference here. They deceived you for selfish reasons, to use you while it was convenient, then discard you when something better came along. We're exposing the truth to prevent someone else, Rebecca, from making a life-altering decision based on lies. Not to mention all the other people who've been honest in their business dealings with the Sullivans. But crashing a wedding, it's so dramatic. Sometimes the truth needs a dramatic entrance," Reagan replied. "Besides, Marcus brought this on himself. He had 4 years to be honest with you. 4 years to make a clean break if Rebecca was who he really wanted. Instead, he strung you along, let you build your life around a lie, and was planning to discard you without any accountability." She was right, of course. Marcus could have ended things with me at any time. Instead, he'd maintained our relationship right up until the last possible moment, extracting every benefit while giving me nothing but false hope in return. "Okay," I said finally. "Let's do this." The night before the wedding, our entire team gathered at Reagan's apartment for final preparations. Tyler handed out earpieces, small, nearly invisible communication devices that would allow us to coordinate during the event. Zoe packed her professional makeup kit, adding a few special items she'd need for her role. Liam and Mia reviewed the legal implications one last time, making sure we understood the boundaries we couldn't cross. Reagan handed me a small flash drive. "All the evidence is here," she said. "Photos, messages, timelines, everything that proves what Marcus and his family did to you. Tyler will handle getting it into their system, but keep this as backup." I took the drive, suddenly feeling the weight of what we were about to do. "Do you think it will work?" She squeezed my hand. "It doesn't matter if it works in terms of stopping the wedding or embarrassing the Sullivans. What matters is that you get to speak your truth after being silenced for so long. What happens after that is up to them." We stayed up late, going over every detail one more time. As everyone prepared to leave, making plans to meet at various locations the next day, Reagan pulled me aside. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" she asked, searching my face. Once we start, there's no turning back. I thought about Marcus, about his family, about 4 years of my life built around something that had been a lie from the beginning. I'm ready, I said, feeling a strange calm settle over me. It's time for the truth to have its day. The morning of June 15th dawned clear and sunny. Perfect weather for a wedding, or for the carefully orchestrated chaos we were about to unleash. I woke early, my stomach a knot of nerves and determination. This was it. The culmination of weeks of planning, of processing betrayal and channeling it into action. Zoe had left at 5 a.m. to arrive at the Westbrook Country Club by 6, when the bridal party was scheduled to begin their preparations. She sent our group chat a thumbs-up emoji at 6:15, confirming she was in position. "Bride seems nervous," she texted an hour later. "Not the usual pre-wedding jitters. Something's off." That was interesting. Did Rebecca have doubts? Did she know about me? About Marcus's double life? I pushed the questions aside. It didn't matter. Today wasn't about saving Rebecca from a bad marriage. It was about the truth, about consequences for actions. By noon, everyone was moving into position. Tyler had set up in a van in the country club parking lot, surrounded by monitors showing security camera feeds he'd hacked into. Reagan was dressed impeccably in a navy blue dress that made her look like she belonged at a high society wedding, ready to create her distraction at the main entrance. Liam and Mia had already checked in as guests, their fake IDs passing inspection without issue. I waited in Tyler's van, watching the monitors as guests began to arrive. There were Marcus's parents, greeting people with practiced charm, the same charm they'd used on me for 4 years while knowing I was just a temporary fixture in their son's life. There was his brother Ethan, looking uncomfortable in his groomsman's tuxedo. And there, stepping out of a sleek black car, was Marcus himself. My heart clenched at the sight of him. Even now, knowing everything I knew, there was a part of me that responded to him. 4 years of love don't disappear overnight, even when they should. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, his dark hair perfectly styled, his smile confident as he greeted guests. I wondered if he was thinking of me at all today, if he spared even a moment to consider the life he'd pretended to be building with me. "You okay?" Tyler asked, glancing away from his screens. "Yeah," I said, forcing my attention back to our plan. "Just ready for this to be over." At 3:30, with the ceremony scheduled to begin at 4, Reagan made her move. Dressed like she belonged, she approached the main entrance with a purposeful stride, then launched into the performance we'd rehearsed. "What do you mean I'm not on the list?" she demanded loudly, her voice carrying across the entrance area. "I'm Rebecca's cousin from Seattle. I flew 5,000 miles for this wedding." The security team converged on her, trying to calm the situation without creating a scene. Meanwhile, I slipped in through a service entrance Tyler had identified, using a staff ID card he'd replicated. Our college friends, already inside as guests, moved toward their designated positions throughout the ceremony space. Zoe's voice came through my earpiece. "Bridal party is moving toward the ceremony area. Rebecca looks like she's going to be sick. I'm serious. Something's definitely up with her." "Stay focused," Tyler's voice replied. "Everyone in position in 3 minutes." I made my way through the back corridors of the country club, following the path Tyler had mapped out for me. I was dressed conservatively in a simple blush-colored dress, present but not drawing attention. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure someone would hear it. This was nothing like the calm, professional graphic designer I normally was. This was someone else, someone who had been pushed to her breaking point. I arrived at my position just as the string quartet began playing. From my vantage point behind a decorative pillar, I could see the entire ceremony space without being immediately visible. The setting was stunning. White roses and hydrangeas everywhere, crystal chandeliers, a white carpet leading to an elaborate floral arch where Marcus stood with the officiant and his groomsmen. The guests were seated, a sea of expensive dresses and suits. I recognized many faces, friends of the Sullivan family who had met me at various events over the years, who had smiled and chatted with me while knowing I was being led along. The music changed, signaling the start of the procession. Bridesmaids in pale blue dresses walked down the aisle, followed by an adorable flower girl tossing rose petals. Then came the traditional bridal march, and everyone stood as Rebecca appeared on her father's arm. She was beautiful, ethereally so in a custom gown that probably cost more than my car. But Zoe was right. Even from a distance, I could see tension in her face, a tightness around her eyes that suggested she wasn't the blissfully happy bride she was supposed to be. The ceremony began, the officiant welcoming everyone to this joyous union of two souls destined for each other. I almost laughed at the irony. If Rebecca and Marcus were destined for each other, what had the last 4 years of my life been? I listened as the officiant spoke about love, commitment, and honesty, each word feeling like a mockery of what I had experienced. And then, finally, came the moment we'd been waiting for. If anyone can show just cause why this couple cannot lawfully be joined together in matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. Tyler's voice came through my earpiece. Now! I stepped out from behind the pillar into the center aisle. I have cause. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Marcus's head snapped up, his eyes widening with shock as he recognized me. I heard Catherine Sullivan's audible, "Oh my God," from the front row. Before security could react, Liam stood up from his seat. "I have cause as well." Then Mia, from the other side of the room. "I also have cause." One by one, our team members rose from various points around the room, each echoing the same words. 7 people in total, strategically placed, so security couldn't easily remove us all at once. The officiant looked bewildered. Senator Montgomery stood up, his face reddening. "What is the meaning of this? Security!" But before anyone could move, the large screens that had been set up to display a wedding montage during the reception suddenly came to life. Tyler's handiwork. On the screens appeared a photo of Marcus and me, dated just 1 month earlier, his arm around me as we stood in front of the cabin we'd rented for a weekend getaway. "My name is Riley Bennett," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "For 4 years, I have been Marcus Sullivan's girlfriend. We lived together. We planned a future together, all while he was apparently engaged to Rebecca." Marcus took a step forward. "Riley, this isn't the place." "Actually, this is exactly the place," Reagan interrupted, having completed her distraction at the entrance and joined us inside. "Because everyone who matters to you is here, Marcus. Everyone you've been lying to." The screens changed to show text messages between Marcus and me, recent ones, where he discussed our future together, mentioned trips we would take in the coming months when he would already be married to Rebecca. Rebecca turned to Marcus, her face pale. "What is this? Who is she?" "She's nobody," Catherine Sullivan interjected, trying to take control of the situation. "Just a disturbed woman Marcus dated briefly years ago." 4 years isn't briefly, Mrs. Sullivan," I countered. "And these messages are from last month. Would you like to see the ones where Marcus discusses the house we were planning to buy together? Or perhaps the ones where he mentions having children?" The screens changed again, displaying a timeline Tyler had created, showing the overlap between Marcus's relationship with me and his courtship of Rebecca. Dates, photos, messages, undeniable evidence that he had been maintaining both relationships simultaneously. "Security, remove these people immediately," James Sullivan demanded. But it was too late. The truth was out, visible on the screens for everyone to see. And more importantly, Rebecca had seen it. "Is this true?" she asked Marcus, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Have you been with her this entire time?" Marcus hesitated, clearly calculating his best move. That hesitation was all Rebecca needed. "You bastard!" she whispered, loud enough for those nearest to hear. Then, louder, "You complete and utter bastard!" She turned to her father. "Did you know about this? About her?" Senator Montgomery looked genuinely shocked. "Of course not. I would never." "Actually, Senator," Mia said, stepping forward with her lawyer's confidence, "we have evidence suggesting that the Sullivan family was fully aware of Marcus's relationship with Riley throughout his engagement to your daughter. In fact, they actively participated in maintaining the deception." On cue, the screens showed photos of me at Sullivan family events, Sunday dinners, holidays, spanning the entire 4 years of our relationship, directly contradicting Catherine's claim that I was just someone Marcus dated briefly years ago. The room erupted in chaos. Rebecca's mother was comforting her now sobbing daughter. Senator Montgomery was confronting James Sullivan, their faces red with anger. Guests were murmuring, taking photos with their phones, the scandal unfolding in real time. "You've had your scene," Marcus finally said, approaching me with cold fury in his eyes. "Are you happy now? Does ruining my life make you feel better about yours?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a strange sense of clarity. "I'm not ruining your life, Marcus. I'm just showing everyone who you really are. The choices were yours. The lies were yours. This is just the consequence." Security finally reached us, but instead of immediately removing us, they looked to the Montgomery family for direction. The senator, his political instincts kicking in, was clearly aware of the scene forcible removal would create, especially with so many witnesses recording on their phones. "Let them say what they came to say," he said tightly. "Then they can leave." With that permission, Reagan stepped forward, addressing the crowd directly. "For 4 years, my sister was in a relationship with Marcus Sullivan. She was invited into the Sullivan home, included in family events, led to believe she had a future with their son, all while they were planning this wedding, using her as a convenient placeholder until Marcus was ready to make the appropriate match. We're here today not just for Riley, but because we believe Rebecca Montgomery deserves to know the truth about the man she was about to marry." Rebecca had composed herself somewhat, though tears still streaked her makeup. She stepped forward, away from her mother's comforting arm. "Did you love her?" she asked Marcus directly. He hesitated again, caught between too many lies to find a safe answer. "Did you love her?" Rebecca repeated, her voice breaking. "It's complicated," he finally said, the worst possible response. Rebecca nodded slowly, then removed her engagement ring and placed it carefully on the podium beside the officiant. "No, it's actually very simple," she said. "The wedding is off." She turned to her stunned guests. "I apologize for the inconvenience. Please enjoy the reception food and drinks. God knows it's all been paid for." Then, with remarkable dignity, she walked back down the aisle alone, her mother hurrying after her. Senator Montgomery approached the Sullivans, his voice low but carrying in the now silent ceremony space. "The development deal is canceled. If you come anywhere near my daughter again, I will destroy your family's company and reputation so thoroughly that the name Sullivan will be synonymous with fraud in this state. Do I make myself clear?" James Sullivan, for once, had nothing to say. As security finally escorted us out, gently at the senator's instruction, I glanced back one last time. Marcus stood alone at the altar, his perfect world collapsing around him. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw something I'd never seen there before. Fear. Not of me, but of the future he now faced. One without the Montgomery connection, potentially without his family's support, and definitely without the carefully constructed image he'd maintained for so long. Outside in the warm June sunshine, my family and friends gathered around me. "Are you okay?" Reagan asked, squeezing my hand. I considered the question carefully. Was I okay? No, not yet, but I would be. "I think I just need to get out of here," I said. As we walked away from the Westbrook Country Club, leaving behind the ruins of Marcus Sullivan's perfect wedding day, I felt something unexpected. Not the satisfaction of revenge, but the weightlessness of truth finally spoken aloud. It's been 8 months since that day at Westbrook Country Club, what local gossip columns dramatically dubbed the wedding crasher scandal. Sometimes it feels like it happened to someone else, like I'm watching a movie about a woman who shares my name, but isn't quite me. The immediate aftermath was intense. Videos from the wedding went viral locally, with grainy cell phone footage showing snippets of the confrontation. Local news picked up the story, though the Montgomerys and Sullivans used their considerable influence to minimize coverage. Still, in our community, it was the scandal of the year. Marcus tried to contact me repeatedly in the weeks that followed. First came the angry messages. How dare I humiliate him? I'd ruined everything. I was selfish and vindictive. Then came the explanations. He'd been trapped by family expectations. He'd never meant to hurt me. It was all a terrible misunderstanding. Finally, when those approaches failed, he tried nostalgia and regret, remembering our good times, suggesting that maybe now we could be together properly since his engagement was off. I didn't respond to any of it. There was nothing left to say. The professional fallout for the Sullivan family was substantial. Senator Montgomery made good on his threat, pulling out of their joint development project and taking several other investors with him. Sullivan Developments lost millions in projected revenue. James Sullivan's reputation in business circles took a hit. Nobody wants to partner with someone who raises a son capable of such calculated deception. As for Marcus, he left town about 3 months after the wedding. That wasn't. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he took a job with a development company in Chicago, a significant step down from the executive position he'd held in his father's company. Whether he left by choice or was pushed out by his embarrassed family, I don't know. Rebecca Montgomery reached out to me about a month after the incident. We met for coffee at a quiet cafe outside town, away from curious eyes. I was nervous. Would she blame me for the public humiliation? But she surprised me. "I wanted to thank you," she said after we'd settled with our drinks. "Not for how you did it, maybe, but for making sure I found out the truth." She explained that she'd had doubts about Marcus for months. Things didn't add up. Times he couldn't be reached. Inconsistencies in his stories. But whenever she questioned him, he made her feel paranoid, overly suspicious. "I was starting to think I was losing my mind," she admitted. "My parents loved him so much. Everyone thought he was perfect, so I figured the problem must be me." "I know exactly how that feels," I told her. And I did. Marcus had a way of making you doubt your own perceptions when they didn't align with the reality he was presenting. Rebecca and I weren't destined to become friends. Our worlds were too different, the circumstances of our meeting too painful, but we parted with mutual respect and an odd sort of solidarity, two women who had escaped the same fate. As for me, I couldn't stay in town. Too many memories, too many whispers, too many places Marcus and I had been together. 3 months after the wedding incident, I accepted a job offer in Denver, a senior graphic design position with a marketing firm, a significant step up from my previous role. Reagan was devastated when I told her I was moving. We'd never lived more than 20 minutes apart our entire lives. "I understand why you need to go," she said, helping me pack up my apartment. "But God, I'm going to miss you. You can visit any time," I promised. "And maybe someday I'll be ready to come back." But we both knew that was unlikely. Some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt, and my bridges in that town had been spectacularly incinerated. Denver has been good for me. New city, new job, new apartment with no memories of Marcus haunting the corners. I've made friends, joined a hiking club, even gone on a few dates, though I'm taking things very slowly in that department. Trust doesn't come easily to me anymore. Tyler visits often. He's actually interviewing for cybersecurity positions in Denver next week. Zoe came out for a ski weekend in January. Reagan flies in at least once a month, and we video chat almost daily. My family, my real family, the people who stood by me when it mattered, remains a constant in my life. Last week, an envelope arrived with a Connecticut postmark. Inside was a check for a substantial amount and a handwritten note from Catherine Sullivan. "For the pain our family caused you. No strings attached." I tore up the check and sent back just the shredded pieces. Some things can't be paid for. Do I regret what we did that day at the wedding? Sometimes I wonder if there could have been a less public way to expose the truth. But then I remember 4 years of lies, of being treated as disposable, of an entire family conspiring to use me as a convenient distraction for their son. And I remember Rebecca's face when she realized she was about to marry a man capable of such calculated deception. No, I don't regret it. The truth deserved its moment in the light, no matter how uncomfortable it made everyone involved. Yesterday, I was hiking one of the trails near my new home, watching the sun set over the mountains, when my phone buzzed with a text from Reagan. "You won't believe this. Marcus is engaged again. Some banker's daughter from Chicago. He works fast." I looked out at the vast landscape before me, miles of wilderness, peaks and valleys, a world so much bigger than the small-town drama I'd left behind, and realized something surprising. I didn't care. Not in the way that pretends not to care but secretly does. I genuinely, completely didn't care what Marcus Sullivan did anymore. I texted back, I hope she's smarter than we were. Then I put my phone away and continued my hike, breathing in the clean mountain air, feeling the space around me. Space to heal, space to grow, space to become whoever I want to be next. The sun was setting on one day, but tomorrow would bring another. And for the first time in a long time, I was excited to